Well, hello. Welcome to the first episode of the Do What Matters podcast. I'm your host, Shannon van der Kruk, and today we're diving into a topic that's heavy but incredibly important, and that's regret. Specifically, the kind of regret that keeps people up at night when they realize time is running out. So let's dive in. Now, let me start by asking you a question. If tomorrow was your last day, would you feel content? Or would you leave with regret? It's a tough question, but it's worth sitting with for a moment. For me, this question hit hard when my grandfather passed away last year. He had big dreams like traveling across Europe with my grandmother, but life threw curveballs. My grandmother suffered a severe fall, limiting their mobility. And soon after, my granddad was diagnosed with cancer. He fought bravely for 2 years before entering palliative care and passing away peacefully. It made me wonder, what are the most common regrets of the dying and how can we avoid them? And most importantly, what might I regret at the end of my life? When you look into this topic, Bronnie Ware's work comes up over and over again. She's an Australian caregiver who spent ages working in palliative care. And during that time, she documented the regrets people shared with her. And her book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, captured these common themes. The first one is, I wish I had let myself be happier. Then, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And the most often, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Now, what's striking about these regrets is they're not about external circumstances. They're not about having a big house, a fancy car, or earning more money. They're about something deeper, about who you are and who you want to be. Your actual self represents who you are today, based on your habits, actions, and current mindset. And your ideal self is the version of you that embodies your dreams, your aspirations, and the goals you hope to achieve. And then there's also the old self, who you feel you should be based on responsibilities, societal expectations, or the pressure of others. Now, regret often stems from focusing too much on the old self, leaving a little room to pursue your ideal self and close the gap between who you are and who you want to become. Now, over the years, I've been thinking more and more about this concept of passing away and coming to the gates of heaven and meeting the person you could have become. The version of yourself who achieved their dreams, unlocked their potential, and lived fully as their ideal self. I find it striking thinking about this and imagining the heartbreak of realizing you never reached that stage because you were too focused on the old self, living a life dedicated to others' expectations and external pressures. And for me, this fear of not reaching my potential is slowly becoming one of the most powerful motivators actually to take action and realign my life with my true aspirations. As Dan Sullivan put it, the definition of hell is on your last day on earth, the person you became meets the person you could have become. So that begs the question, how do we close this gap and avoid those regrets? Well, it starts with reverse engineering our lives. So reverse engineering simply means breaking down a desired outcome or vision into smaller, actionable steps. Thinking of it as starting at the end and then working backwards. So just picture this. Picture yourself on your deathbed and think about the things you'd regret not having done and write this down. Then identify why you would regret not doing those things. What's the gap between who you are now and who you want to be? And then for each regret, ask, what can I do right now to align my actual self with my ideal self? What is a small step I can take today to get me closer to that ideal self? Now, ultimately, this process is about taking ownership of your choices and realizing that every step you take today can bring you closer to your ideal self. Now, to just do this exercise, I just want to kind of go over my own regret list. I want to share the top 3 potential regrets and what I'm currently doing to avoid them. So my number 1 regret is not taking care of my health. I remember reading in Stephen Bartlett's book about prioritizing your first foundation. He said that health is the foundation of everything. If the foundation collapses, everything else, like your work, relationships, hobbies, crumbles with it. And you can take away work, you can take away a relationship and still be more than fine. But without good health, even the most cherished dreams and ambitions become secondary, as they depend on the physical and mental energy to pursue them. And yeah, that analogy struck me deeply because I don't want to wake up one day with preventable disease, knowing that I could have avoided it by simply making better choices today. And the funny thing is yet that I noticed for half my life, health wasn't really a priority. Especially because like when I was 16, I had surgery on my knee and all of a sudden I wasn't able to play sports anymore. And I spent my teenage years and pretty much 20s drinking and partying and even smoking for years. But then, yeah, I turned 30. I don't know, it was just all of a sudden kind of like this wake up call. My wife and I were trying to start a family and I knew it was time to take control. And I've been saying this for years, but in that moment, like when you actually try to start a family where you're going to be this role example for like this little child, you need to start taking control. And there are no excuses I had at that point. So in that moment, I've committed to a healthier lifestyle. And I ran my first half marathon last year. And I'm currently actually training for my first marathon this year because I want to be the kind of parent who can run around my child, who plays sports with him. And also I want to live into old age to experience as much of his life as possible. So this commitment ensures that I stay active, I eat well and manage stress, hopefully creating a ripple effect on every other aspect of my life. And then regret number 2 that I have is not spending enough time with my parents. And this one is especially hard now that I live in Australia and my parents live on the other side of the world in the Netherlands. Yeah, so this vast distance makes it incredibly challenging to see each other. And also the cost of flying internationally adds another layer of difficulty. So yeah, over the past 5 years, I've only been able to visit them, I think once every 1 or 2 years. And as the years pass, I'm actually so aware of how finite our time is. Sahil Bloom and a few other people on social media have shared this graph, but research actually shows that around 90% of the time we spend with our parents happens before we turn 18. A statistic that has never felt more real to me than now. And I think about how much of their lives I'm actually missing and how much of mine they're also missing. And especially now that I have a son, the distance is even more painful. My parents are missing out on seeing him grow up and the little things like his first words, his giggles, and yeah, the way his personality is blossoming. And becoming a parent myself has given me a new perspective on this. I now understand how deeply parents cherish time with their children, and thinking about how much I would miss if I couldn't be close to my son fills me with a sense of sadness and empathy for my parents. And I can't even imagine anything worse than not being able to spend significant time with my son as he grows up. And I know my parents must feel the same. But yeah, despite these challenges, I've committed to being intentional about staying connected. I've made it a priority to visit them at least once a year, even if it's expensive or logistically complicated. We're now, for instance, planning a trip together to the United States. But yeah, they're coming to cheer me in Chicago for my first marathon, which I'm deeply grateful for. And it just means a lot. But yeah, we're planning now a trip to go, well, we've actually already booked it, to the States, and then we'll travel around a bit. And that's then one of the ways that we can meet up, and have the chance to create memories that will last a lifetime. And in between visits, I also try to bridge the gap with video calls and updates. And although it's never the same as obviously being together in person, I'm so grateful that today's technology allows for this. I mean, living so far apart has taught me how important it is to prioritize time with the people we love, no matter how difficult it may be. Because like, I can't change the distance, but I can choose to make the most of the time we have. And that's a commitment I take to heart. My third regret is not being present in the moment. Life is lived in the present, and yet it's astonishingly easy. I can't even say the words. Anyway, it's just easy to miss out on its richness. So often I catch myself replaying past mistakes or anxiously plotting future plans, only to realize that I've let today slip through my fingers. For instance, moments with family, friends, and even the beauty of nature deserve my full attention, but distractions or like overthinking, they unfortunately have a way of stealing the joy right in front of me. So my plan is like, I'm working on cultivating mindfulness and grounding myself in the here and now. I'm making a conscious effort to pause and savor the little things, like the sound of my son laughing, or just even like when I'm walking in the morning, like towards the train station, just to take in the warmth of the sun on my skin, because it's summer now here in Australia. And these are the moments that give life its depth and meaning, and I'm learning to approach them with gratitude and intentionality. And it is a practice, but one that I know will make a profound difference in my overall happiness and sense of fulfillment. So yeah, now that I've shared my top 3 potential regrets, or I know there will be more regrets if I don't tackle them now, I encourage you to try this exercise yourself. Ask yourself, what are the regrets that you might face at the end of your life? Are your current actions helping you avoid these regrets? And what changes can you make today to live a life true to yourself? Thank you so much for spending time with me on Do What Matters. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with someone who might need this reminder. And I hope to see you next time.